Hello, I'm Dr. Libby Kemkaran, and this is Tame Your Brain. What are we up to? 14. And it's a daily dose of 10 minutes of positivity with kittens, whilst I help you make sense of your brainwaves. So today is a zoom in on our kids and some of the behaviours we're seeing. And I think this is a topic on a lot of people's minds right now. I'm going to show you our furry distractors in a minute, and we have some exciting news today. We've got one new hero helper that I'm going to hopefully tell you by the end of this. We are going to help calm the circuits in your brain by watching some kittens so you can be more comfortable in this time of crazy. So here we go on 10 minutes of our little furry babies. I'm going to switch this around. They're crawling away already. I don't know quite how they've worked it out, but they're all heading back towards home like a swarm. So let's talk about what we're doing today on this glorious sunny day. I'm going to tell you some brain tips and tweaks to help you deal with the very obvious stress and anxiety build-up of these historic times, particularly with our kids, because here's the thing, when we live in this fight or flight mode, it changes our behaviours. It can't help but do that because that's how we're wired, and it's a survival mechanism. It just doesn't feel very good. So our kids are the same as us, and perhaps even more so because they haven't yet developed the stop and hold mechanism that we have. And this is a mechanism we have which is like a mental brake that stops us mostly from saying something we regret. And this is set higher or lower depending on whether your triggers are being poked and whether your stress levels are high. And obviously we get higher and closer to that trigger threshold every time we get stressed. So some of you may have noticed yourself getting a little bit less empathetic than you would otherwise have been, and perhaps you would have seen things more from the other person's point of view. And especially when we feel a bit worn thin, it's when either the tears come or the shouts come bursting out of us, and perhaps we didn't mean to be so angry and it's disproportionate, but we just fly off the handle or flip our lid. So kids have this too, and just for a minute imagine they're having the same strong confusion about our reality and that our brains are dealing with, but just with zero to none of the coping skills that we've built up over the years of learning that acting a certain way doesn't help and may actually cause more trouble. So they've got none of the practice responses that we've trained ourselves over the years, like take a deep breath, count to 10, look up at the sky, mouth FFS to yourself, and then pour a large gin and get on with it. So with them it comes out as a more manifest response, and those are cry, shout, stamp. One of mine this week has developed a great line in slamming her feet down hard on every single step up to her bedroom, with a perfect double door slam on the way, the two doors in between. Another of mine is now just bursting into tears, just general crying, and that response is on a hair trigger right now. Yesterday came out in response to, I can't play Minecraft on Zoom, they're not my friends, they won't play with me, when her big sis was on a Zoom group. And another of mine, much more grown up, goes the other way and just completely disconnects with me with a, oh, don't bother, never mind. And that's her safety net, and I respect that. I don't push it, but then I try and get her to reconnect in a different way after the effect. So different ages have different mechanisms depending on how far they've got on building their emotional architecture. And these little rages are expressions of their brain overloading with stress hormones, the ones that I keep mentioning, because they come from this limbic system, which is there to help us survive by giving us that anxious feeling until we're forced to choose one route or another, fight or flight. Those are our only two basic responses. So I'm just moving these back into the middle because Mummy's back now, so she can get a little puddle in the middle there. There we go, Mama. There we go, Mama. Yeah, come on then. There we go. So when we think about our brains, when we think about our kids' brains, we need to remember that they are dramatically more liable to fly off the handle than we are. I've reached out on Facebook this week asking for people to tell me, what are you seeing? And I got several really interesting posts and a couple of really heartfelt messages. And what's interesting is the number of veiled somatic responses that people are seeing. Soma means body. And this is where the body tells you something's wrong and you get a biological response. So I've heard of tummy aches, upset tummies, sore tummies, constipation, or D+ in the other way as we call it in med speak. And why does that happen? Well, it's because the effect of the mind, psyche, on the body, soma, is a well-known phenomena. Psychosomatic is the word. but it's a phrase that's often misunderstood because the kids are not making this up. It's just how the body expresses itself and how it flags up something's wrong. We're a biochemical machine, and when we're in balance, or what we call homeostasis, the body runs beautifully smoothly like a machine. However, as soon as we go out of balance, like when we go into stress mode, it triggers a different cascade. So our hypothalamic pituitary axis, which is a big fancy chemical word for our stress cascade, then floods the body, and we have downstream effects. And we get this wash of scary chemicals in the bodies of our babies that then means we see biological effects that may appear totally unrelated. For example, two very good friends of mine have had their children break out in shingles, which is a classic sign of immune suppression. And that's triggered at the time when the body is under this chemical threat from a prolonged release of stress hormones. And you don't need to be in tears to be under stress, guys. This is the other point. There is no map for our brains for what's happening in the world right now. So any time that our brain goes questing for an answer that it hasn't got, and it doesn't find anything in our data banks, it just, to help us, it switches on our stress chemicals, just in case. So there's an awful lot of just in case being switched on at the moment. And so these stress hormones are being released to buffer this uncertainty. After this period of time finishes, simple things can also switch it on: a job interview, an appraisal, an argument, a Facebook war, a problem to fix, and all of these can just switch those chemicals on. So it's really useful to learn more now, because if we know more, we feel better, and we can do more and become better humans for ourselves and each other. So I'm going to announce at the end of this our next cat helper hero, and it's a little girl that I think is watching right now, and her name might begin with the letter A or A. So have a think if your name begins with A or A, and I wonder if you might be our next cat helper hero. And it's for this little kitten here. This one is called Polka, and we'll have a quick look at Polka in a minute. So here's the thing. Stress narrows the power of our brains, which is why I started this little series to tame our brains again and give us some calm time every day in a bit of self-care, and to give us some focus to pull us out of this stress mode so that our higher brain can reconnect with purpose and move back into this logical mode more of the time, rather than just diving into these panic hormones. And our kids need this too, guys. They need to come out of stress mode, because however subtle it is, it will be affecting them in some way. And they will display behaviours like my little girl stamping to release some of that pressure that's built up inside her and she's got nowhere to go with it. They've been out of school for a huge proportion of their little lives now. And by the way, I'm not for a minute suggesting the schools go back, far from it. I think we're still at a very dangerous level in the population. But the truth is, our kids' brains are like little house builders that have only done the ground floor so far. So whereas you and I have an emotion, a ground floor emotion, we can walk it upstairs to the rational neocortex. Our kids haven't got round to building this next story up yet. So they just don't have the coping skills yet. They don't have the upper floor. And we can massively help that, however, because we do, unless, and here's the kicker, unless we ourselves are paper thin, worn down by exhaustion and confusion and stressed out ourselves. Then we've got nothing left to give. So I was talking to a fabulous colleague of mine, Lucy, this week, and we're planning a joint venture focused on teaching you and your kids some useful things. And this is going to be, hopefully, we're in discussion on this, so I haven't got the final details yet, but we're going to be coming up with something that is a useful tool, like a webinar as we emerge post-lockdown, come into the new brave new world. Please do drop me a line if you're keen. I'm not going to spam everyone that's watching now, because it may not be relevant to you, but if you have got kids and you want to develop some amazingly effective circuitry and some circuit breakers, more importantly, obviously those are great for now, but yeah, for the longer term there's something that's really useful as well. So please do sign up to my newsletter. Please do go to my website, which is kemkaran.com, and a little pop-up box there will let you pop your details in, and then I'll write to you in the next couple of days. More on that next week once I've finished arranging that with Lucy, but that's the plan. So you remember I said there was a little girl whose name begins with A. Her name ends with E. So if your name begins with A and your name ends with E, you might be interested that this little kitty here, who is called Polka, is going to be coming to join you, and you're our new cat helper hero, because Polka is coming to live with you in your new little cat world, which I gather is building up. I think you've got 2 cats already, and this will be number 3. Let's just get a little close up on Polka. Hi, Polka. Hi. So congratulations. If your name begins with A and ends with E, you might be called Alice, and that little kitty cat is coming to live with you. So congratulations. I'm going to finish up now. And if you haven't seen these before, they're all on my website, kemkaran.com, and the link going through to my YouTube channel is on there, so do click on. And again, if it resonates with you, please share it, because you never know who might need to hear this right now. Equally, if you want more help with your kids, watch out for that newsletter, which is coming out next week. And I'm going to finish up now and say thank you for watching, stay well, and I'll see you soon. I'm off for the next couple of days, having a little bit of a break, so come back on Monday and see how much the little furry babies have grown. Thanks guys, bye.